Drew Curtis runs a site called FARC. Has anyone seen FARC? It's what's called a link blog. Probably the most popular kind of blog on the web is a link blog, which is basically links to lots of other stuff and then comments about it. And it's got a lot of attitude, it's got a lot of personality, it's also kind of snarky. They are doing 40 million page views a month. And they have a full-time staff of 2. There's 2 people who do this blog. How many fully staffed professional publishers are doing 40 million page views a month for their title? This is one of the disruptive aspects of this new media, is that the economics are vastly more efficient than the economics of print publishing. And you have people who are running successful blogs successful websites that are outdrawing the websites of various very well-established publishers, and they're doing it at 1 to 2% of the cost. On the left are Paige Henninger and Gretchen Vogelzang. They're a couple of mothers out of the Beltway area, delightful people. They have 7 children between them, and they get together. They were getting together a few times a week for coffee and to commiserate about family issues and such. And Gretchen's husband, who's a PR guy in Washington, came home one day and he had just heard about a new phenomenon called podcasting, delivery of audio as a downloadable file over the internet. And he told Gretchen that he thought that Gretchen and Paige should do a podcast. They were great together. They could capture some of the chemistry they had. So they set up a computer in their bedroom and they created a podcast, and they called it MommyCast. And a friend of theirs designed a website. And they thought they'd do maybe 4 or 5 of these podcasts, mainly for their family and for their friends, and be kind of a goof. Well, one thing led to another. They got a couple of lucky breaks. And 6 months later, they were on the homepage of Apple when Apple launched the version of iTunes, the first version of iTunes that supported podcasting. Traffic went through the roof, and their brand was made. Today, MommyCast gets about 300,000 downloads of each of its weekly programs. They're about to record their 200th program. They have multiple sponsors, 6-figure sponsors, including the biggest sponsor is Dixie Cup, which can't get enough of them. Features them on their fall school campaigns. And last year, they did a show that was devoted to a relatively little-known film called March of the Penguins. At that point, it was in limited release in the U.S. Well, after the MommyCast devoted a show to March of the Penguins, the word-of-mouth popularity of the film took off. Subsequently, the distribution was expanded. March of the Penguins has done over $110 million, and Warner Entertainment attributes about 1/3 of the revenue of that movie to the viral traffic that was started by MommyCast. They've got a great franchise, and they still do it out of their bedroom. In fact, they've resisted multiple offers to take their program to terrestrial radio and even to television. Facebook, the new darling of the internet, huge growth in the last 6 months. Probably the first early big winner in social networking, and there will be others because they come and go because the cost of entry is so low. As I said, the numbers are compelling, even staggering. The number of MySpace and Facebook members together, over 125 million people. Flickr and YouTube, over 25 million. 65% of Facebook members log on daily. Daily. I can't think of anything I do. Well, I do a few things I do daily, but I can't think of much I do on the internet daily. But they are getting this kind of audience affinity. Meanwhile, growth in U.S. newspaper circulation in the last 17 years, off 8 million, and the average age of a network keeping news viewer is now 60. So what that means is that we are poised for, I think, a shift in media consumption habits that will affect all of us as publishers. Not necessarily a bad thing, certainly a disruptive thing. But the demographic trends are all pointing to the fact that the next generation of consumers and business people will take for granted these kinds of communities and these kinds of connections and these kinds of personal publishing tools. The economics of metropolitan daily newspaper publishing are terrible, and they're going to be, it's not that the daily newspapers aren't important or aren't useful, it's that they're not going to be economically sustainable. Nevertheless, that does not apply to every market. I think that some of the vertical markets, many vertical markets, will be practically untouched. In fact, some vertical markets may actually grow as a result of this. You know, I saw an issue of Brides magazine recently. It's over 800 pages. Brides magazine is not suffering because of this. However, My old employer, Computer World, which was as recently as the early 90s running 200 pages a week, is now down to it's a flyer at this point. They're not making any money on it. So in different industries, this phenomenon will play out differently. Some of the economic disparities, mainstream media is rooted in mass markets. The idea that you have to build scale, you have to have a large number of people because the economics don't work if you don't have a large number of people. Social media economics rooted in small markets because you can publish very cheaply. Mainstream media delivery network is your differentiator. Your delivery network, including your circulation list. Social media, you don't have these circulation lists. Your circulation list is Google. Almost none of these. These social media sites do have registered members, but the ability for them to keep those members. I'm speaking very broadly here. Okay, and understanding that you're in B2B media for the most part. Very different economics in some of these cases. I think the more specific your market is, the slower your customer is to move to new media, the longer it will take for a change to play out. However, I do believe that over the next 20 or 30 years, every market, including the small B2B markets, will be radically transformed by this personal publishing phenomenon. The current economic model is broken. Of all of the big mainstream media, including newspapers, television, radio, and mass market print. The economic model is just broken, and it's not going to work because they're competing. Their ad revenue stream, if you consider the previous slide, their ad revenue stream is very clearly moving online, and the economics of selling that kind of advertising don't support the high fixed costs of producing print publications. So they've got a problem. They've got to make a transition to a new economic model without going through the pain of deconstructing the old one. That's going to be difficult to do. Information is cheap and accessible. We have to do the biggest new reality we have to deal with now is that when many of us got into publishing, information was expensive. It was difficult to get. And our value proposition as publishers was that we had access to information, and we were a conduit of information. Information is now cheap and easily, and that is the new opportunities for publishers will be in aggregating information and intelligently. I think that editors are always going to be needed. People will need to come. Who's got time to look at 100 blogs every day? What people want to do is go to a place where they can get a limited amount of, they get information that's filtered, categorized, and presented appropriately for their needs, which means that the role of publishers, I think, increasingly will be to aggregate information coming in from a great many sources, to filter it, to make sense of it, to structure it in a way that is meaningful so that people can consume it in a short amount of time.